through for the Minimalism Investigation. Since I'm not going to be here, I felt it was fair. I did a lot of work on trying to revise this, give you a little bit more focus, and so I just wanted to go through what we're doing and what I expect you to be doing, and all this really should take one day. It can be done at home if you miss it or if you're catching up. The due date's 5/3, and the final day is 2 weeks after that. Okay, so let's start with the web page and how it's laid out. I might make a couple of changes, but the main question is how can you say more while showing less? And the main three components are just that you want to work with are negative space, a small main subject, and you're either doing that by depth of field, or it's a small subject relation to the background, or it's a small part of a subject, and you're trying to limit clutter. Now the change is that what I'm doing is asking you to focus on one of 4 different styles of minimalist photography, genres, we'll call them genres, and one's monochromatic. Monochromatic is basically all black and white. It's a very broad field. There's a lot of different examples here, and for specific research, I've given you a few links to start with in each of these categories so you can see examples and get a better feel for what I think would be a good representation of that genre. Another genre is architectural. This is good for our building, and again, you can walk around and use what you see. There's some really cool spots around here, and the more you wander, the more you'll see to be able to do this. And the key thing here is reducing down and focusing on shapes, lines, colors, value, those kind of things. And again, there's some really great websites that I was able to find that show you good examples of architectural minimalism. Portrait minimalism. This one's a challenge because when you look at portrait examples, and I don't have quite as many to show, and even on this one, when you see portrait examples, you'll see that there's some that are showing the whole face, but I'm asking you to focus more on fractions. So reducing down the photo by not having the whole face, and there's 2 different schools of thought, and that's one of them. I want you to focus on that, and I think the other one is a lot like what we've already done before. High key, low key, you're eliminating background distractions, you're using depth of field, but it's still just a portrait. So for this portrait, and I like the hands as an example, even though that's also an example of monochromatic minimalism, it's a very powerful story told by a fraction. And it's it's hard to see with this image, but when you see it on yours, it'll be a little bit bigger. It's 2 small child's hands with the grandfather's hands, and the contrast and the lighting and the minimal distraction is what makes that stand out. So when you're looking at photos, you're looking at fractions. Think a sliver of someone in a mirror, or even from behind, or a shadow cast upon an arm, or a part of the whole, or a part of the face, or a close-up of a particular part of the face. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about portraiture. Now you can go black and white, you don't have to, but it's trying to reduce down and make a fraction of a person as the whole frame. The last one is abstract minimalism. And abstract minimalism, there's a ton of really great examples. If you don't really know what you're looking at, but it's visually striking, you're on the right track. Abstract is exactly that. You don't really know what it is. It's an abstraction. It's a derivative of an object. And the less you know about what that came from, the better. So this example of the image of lights coming down, I didn't even really track down what it was, but it's a really good example. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it's a great composition. And so hopefully by narrowing down one of these genres, you can focus your research and your investigation on examples of them and then get better results when it's time to start your depth and breadth folder. You got an example, or you got a link here to take you to the notes. This time I decided it's better to make a copy of it. So I'm going to make sure that that works so that you can create a copy of the notes, because you're going to want to make put images in them. And the best way to do that is to just keep it as digital and turn it in digitally. And there's also some general tips here that I compiled that were good on how to do a minimalism that applies to almost all genres. So that's what you're going to use is this and this. And I may rearrange this to go on the top, but either way, they're there. So the notes themselves are organized into several different columns and tables. And the first table, these are general tips from the websites. So you can go straight to these tips and read through, skim, jot down the things that are important, how they help you, and just make sure that you let me know what source each one's coming from. If you decide to go outside and do a Google, just make sure you tell me what website the tip came from. So I'm looking for 10 different tips from different sites, at least a couple of them represented, not just one article, but several articles, so I can see what you're doing to prepare for this. Then we get down more to specific, genre specific. So I'm just asking you to highlight So let's say I just do abstract. I'm just going to highlight that, and that's an indicator that that's the genre that I'm looking at. I'm going to undo that so that it's not on your copy. And then you're looking at these specific tips. And again, portrait minimalism, you might have a little bit harder time finding them, but keep looking. And again, try to ignore the low-key, high-key ones and focus on the photos that show fractions, or you could say partial abstractions of people, but you know it's a person, but it's not the whole person. That's the whole point. You're not supposed to see the whole person. So choosing that and then really narrowing down what do you see specific to your genre. And then the last section is 3 photos, minimalism photos, that I'm going to ask you to put on the left column and write down a quick analysis of what you see on the right column. So this whole goal here is for you to not just know about minimalism, which is very, very broad, too broad, but really narrow it down to what you want to work with. And I think the power or the strength of this is that all of these are things you can work with at school. A monochromatic, you're looking for subjects with blank backgrounds. Architecture, the whole building's an example of architecture. Portrait, you can use people. And minimalism, you can use much more focused derivatives of light or color or combinations of shapes. And all these can be done in the building or at home. So that's it. That's all I'm asking you guys to do. I hope you have a good time with this. And please take a look at this while I'm gone and work on the investigation and turn it into Canvas.